So we're just starting the lesson, walking him over to the mounting block. Just want him to, walk up and stand so it's easy to mount him. He's not too far forward, not too far back. He stands still. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't try and pull away from the mounting block. He's listening to me as I get on. So it's not like, it's startled when I get on. I want him to stand there until I actually tell him to walk forward. And then we just start out here doing small circles, or what's called voltes, which are just circles, small circles. And basically all I'm doing here is, warming him up, getting him to relax, getting him to turn, so that his spine is kind of the same bend as the bend of the circle of the track that he's on. I don't want his nose to be out the opposite direction, or his shoulder to be one way and his hindquarters to be the other way. So it's just kind of a warm-up routine that we do. Just asking him to be consistent. I want him to feel the pressure of the reins. I don't have a real hold of him, but I also don't want him to pull on the reins. I don't want him to, bring his nose so far back that he avoids any contact with the reins. I kind of want him to, hold the bit and feel my hand, like he was, holding or, doing a handshake, basically. So he's not, so he's listening to small cues that I'm giving him with my hand. So when we're doing the circles here, I want his nose, his whole spine to bend towards the inside of that circle, and his legs to be, if I drew a line in the ground of the circle, I want his right two pair of legs on one side of that line and his left two pair of legs on the other side of the line. I like to throw in some halts, just so that he's listening to me. So when we change directions, I want him to change the bend in his body. I don't want him to, really, crank his neck and his head, one direction. Ask him to halt. That's a really good halt. He halted really square, is, kind of made a square with his back feet and his front feet, or a rectangle, I guess, but they called it a square halt, which means he's listening. He's using his body well. His balance is a lot better. If he wasn't balanced, he wouldn't stop square like that. He would, stop, and then either, one foot would be further out or to the side, or he'd take a step sideways just because he's, out of balance. See, his back legs are square, but his front legs were a little off. So, his front left was a little out to the left. So it usually means he was putting more weight on that left shoulder. So he had to bring that left foot out to balance himself. And even though his feet aren't exactly perfect on that stop, they were all four underneath him. He didn't have one hind leg further out, back underneath, back behind him, and his front legs were underneath him, even though that they weren't straight either. They weren't off to this one side or the other. So that was still a good stop. You see that right hind was out behind him. So when I asked him to, well, actually, I'm asking him to do a turn on the forehand. So I'm asking his hind end to go around his front end. He was a little out of balance when I started that, so it did not end pretty. So going to the left, he always, when I asked for this hind end, see how he moves that right hind underneath his body. That was really good. He's really reaching underneath himself, bringing that leg under. He's bringing his left leg way under his body as well. There he got a little confused. Going to the left, it's a little harder for him. He throws his head, kind of resists it. That's just telling me that the strength for him, if you notice his hind end right there, the strength for him to do that, to move his hind end over, is still developing. So that's why he kind of, throws his head and pulls on the reins. He's just saying he's out of balance. He needs more strength there, and that will come. That is completely normal. There I'm asking for his front end to move around his hind end, which is a lot harder because they have to shift their weight to their hind end. So that takes strength as well. That was pretty good. So I think I was trying to get him to do a full pass where he moves his front feet and his back feet together in a direction, which is a lot more difficult. See, he was really confused, kind of wiggling around. So I just walked him out of it. Don't really want to make a big deal about it. I want him to go to the left, and he's wanting to go to the right. There we go. Got a good step to the left, so we walked forward. So when we do those, turn on the forehand, turn on the haunches, side pass, those are all called lateral work. So those take a lot of strength. It tests his balance, and so after we do those, I do several at a time. I try and walk him forward. That was really good. That was a really good sideways, not a whole lot of forward. So he did it good. I let him walk and not, hound them again to let's do it again right away. This direction isn't quite as good. He wants to turn a little bit, but still not bad. I would rather him want to go forward than step backwards. When they step backwards, it makes it more difficult to get them out of that stepping, backing up and avoiding it. Mm-hmm. So I'm just doing a small circle here. I think I'm setting him up for what's called a shoulder in, which will get a different angle at it so you can see. But basically I'm asking his shoulders to come off the line of travel and have his hindquarters stay on the line of travel. Then I turn, do a small circle or volte in the opposite direction. And then when I come back to the wall, we'll do a counter shoulder in. So that's where he's bent, his head and neck are kind of bent towards the rail, and his hind end comes off the line of travel, and his front end stays on the line of travel. And he's pretty good at doing those are both lateral exercises as well. And I think I'll do it again here, and you should be able to see, kind of what it really involves. So the circle at the beginning just kind of sets him up, makes it easier for him to understand what I'm asking him to do. So when we get back to the rail, I'll ask his front end to come off the rail and his back end to stay on the rail. And then we'll turn, and then we'll make a small volte to the other direction. So all of this bending, changes of direction back and forth really gets him to become supple in his spine and get balanced. So now that we're back onto the rail, we're going to do a counter shoulder in. I'm going to ask his hind end to come towards the center. He's going to be bent towards the rail. And that's pretty good. He came off the rail a little bit, but at this stage of the game, that's really good. The more of this that I do with him, the more balanced he becomes. It's easier for him to, do other things. It'll make it easier for him to canter when the time comes. He stopped here. I should have asked him to, bring that right hind up underneath him just a little bit. And I just want him just kind of moving around a little bit on him. I want him to realize that, I can do stuff while we're stopped, and I haven't asked him to walk forward. So he just needs to stand there. And this also gives him time to think about what we just did. The shoulder in and the counter shoulder in, it lets him think about those exercises. Now the walk that he's doing now is much more what I would like him to do all the time. But it takes him a while to get warmed up and get that forward walk. And I'm just doing a big circle here. And then I'm asking him to move away from my inside leg. so that he does kind of a leg yield away from the circle. It's kind of hard to see it, but you may be able to see it in this corner because I think I asked him in this corner. Nope, I did not ask him. You can see, that turn was really nice and soft, nice and supple. He's really listening to me. He's really relaxed. Kind of doing a small little leg yield there. This direction is much better. He needs to keep walking forward when he does those, but he's really just learning this. So I'm not too concerned about how fast he's walking to do this. I just want him to be responsive as far as moving away from pressure. There again, I'm asking him, see how he kind of throws his head. That's telling me that his hind end is a little tired. Even though we've just been walking, all this lateral work is a lot of work for his hind end. But even though it's a lot of work for him, and he's obviously he kind of throws his head, kind of throws a fit, just a tiny, not really a fit, but he's showing signs of being uncomfortable. He, as soon as I stop asking for that, he comes back down. Oh, and that's where he did a little spook there. We had some snow or ice or something slide off the roof. So he's like, I don't want to go down to that end, but he's come a long way in the short amount of time since he's been here, because he would not have gone down to that end after, something coming off the roof like that. So he's, now he's nice and quiet again. I asked him to stop. I should have asked for that left hind to come up underneath him again. And pushed him into a trot, and he went right up into a trot, nice and quiet. Doing a posting trot, because I think that is important. A lot of horses get kind of, and he was, when I first started posting on him, kind of made him nervous, and he wasn't sure what was going on with the movement on his back, since Cal and them don't do any posting trot. But I think it's important to do a posting trot just to give their back a break. The more you sit, especially on a young horse that's still developing his back, the harder it is, and then they don't want to bring their back up or reach up underneath themselves with their hind legs, because you're putting pressure on their back. So he's doing a lot better as far as staying stable at the trot. If you remember the first couple times you watched him go, shortly after we brought him home, he would do kind of a weird little hitch in his hind end. That all goes back to strength and balance. So he's developing really nice strength and balance. He keeps kind of throwing his head up in this spot, because that's where that spot is where the ice came off the roof, so he's, thinking that maybe something else will happen, but he's not stupid about it. He just says, yeah, I don't know about that. Changing directions at the trot is hard work. You can see kind of, when he raises his head like that, it's telling me that it's a little hard work for him. Good transition. So lots and up and down transitions from the walk to the trot. It's going to build strength. It's going to get his balance, get him listening to what I'm asking him to do. The more transitions, the more he has to listen. So there I'm doing a sitting trot to kind of help him develop the strength in his back, so that he, so that he knows that he can do it. But you can see when I sit, he brings his head up a little bit. It's not as comfortable for him to do for me to do a sitting trot. He needs to develop a little bit more strength in his back. Now when we're trotting like this, I'm not trying to get his, head and neck and nose in a position. I just want him to be relaxed. I want him to, same as the walk, I want to, have a feel of his mouth, but I don't want him pulling on me. And the stronger he gets and the more balanced he gets, the easier it will be for him to be nice and quiet at the trot like he is at the walk. There. So I asked him to halt, and I could feel that right front back, and so I was asking him to bring that right front up so that it was square underneath his shoulders, and he finally did that. So now I'm doing basically a square, a 20-meter square, and asking for a shoulder in on the sides. So the shoulder in is where I ask his the bend to the inside. The bend to the inside with a shoulder coming in and the haunches staying on the rail. I also do a haunches in, which is a lot more difficult for them to do because they're bent in the direction of their traveling. So I'm asking for him to look to the inside and move his haunches to the inside as well. As you can see here, that's what I was trying to do there. You can see he's very unbalanced in doing that. It's there. That's pretty good there. But it's much more difficult for them to stay on the bend and move the haunches in the same direction. So if I ask his haunches to move into the center and have him bent towards the center, have his spine bent toward the center instead of having his head and neck bent towards the outside, it's much more difficult. He has to bring his hind legs up underneath him a lot more. There I asked him a turn on the forehand to change directions, and then we'll do the same thing going the other way. We'll do shoulder in first. We're asking his shoulders to come in towards the center. So this is easier than the haunches in because they're actually traveling. The bend is the kind of the opposite direction of what they're traveling. So he's bent to the inside and the shoulders are into the inside, but he's moving. The bend is moving a different direction. It might be easier to explain in person. So when I do the haunches in, his hind end comes in, he's bent to the inside, and he's traveling that same direction. So I ask his hind end to move in. That wasn't a very good one. And if he doesn't do it, I'm not going to press him. This is all just to develop his strength and his flexibility. There, that was pretty good. I'm not sure what I was asking there. He kind of moved both front end and back end. I'm asking his front end there, definitely. And you can see he's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. I'm tired. I can't do it anymore. We get a couple turns there. You can really see, when we do it that way, you can see that he's bent. So this way he's bent the opposite direction that his shoulders are moving or his haunches are moving, which is easier than if I had him bend into the direction that we're going. And we're just kind of wandering around, I think. He's not really wanting, he's tired. He's not really wanting to do it. Probably should have just, left it there, let him walk on a long rein, not push it anymore. There. Just want him to stand quietly. He needs to understand that, once he's asked to stop, that means stop, that we're done. We're not doing any more. And then as soon as I'm ready to go, then he says, okay, then we can go. Just ask him to move away from my leg. There. Good. And take him over to the mounting block. It's a lot easier on his back to mount and dismount from the mounting block. You're not pulling on his spine to get on and off. Being as tall as he is, that's really important. So he needs to stand quietly. And he's going to bite the reins.